So let's just jump right into it. The big question, the one that's on every developer's mind right now, is AI going to kill programming? It's absolutely everywhere. In this explainer, we're going to unpack a really raw, unfiltered take from a veteran developer on what he thinks is actually happening. His whole argument is pretty interesting. He says that to even begin to understand the future, you first have to look at the past, because believe it or not, we've seen these kinds of hype cycles before. Okay, let's get into it.
This really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's the one that's just flooding every single tech forum, every Slack channel, and probably your own brain. Are we all about to be replaced by a simple prompt? You can feel the anxiety in the air, and it's not helping that some of the biggest names in tech are pouring fuel on that fire. I mean, when you hear a statement like this from the CEO of NVIDIA no less, it's bound to send some shockwaves. The vision he's painting is crystal clear, a world where nobody needs to learn how to code anymore. But our source, the developer whose perspective we're digging into, argues that this is not the first time we've heard people declaring the end of programming as we know it. And to see why, we need to take a little trip back in time.
Right, because this whole feeling of panic and uncertainty, it's not actually new. You know that old saying, history doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme? Well, that's especially true in the tech world. To really understand the AI hype we're in right now, our source suggests we look at the last 30 years of programming, which he breaks down into four, let's say, very familiar stages.
So first, way back in the 90s, you had the nerd stage. Coding was this weird niche hobby that most people thought was pretty useless. Then came the problem stage, where IT departments were seen as this necessary but super frustrating evil for businesses. That led right into stage 3, the solution. This was the massive hype of the 2010s, where literally everyone from Mark Zuckerberg to Barack Obama was telling you that you had to learn to code. And, well, that brings us to where we are today. Stage 4, the hangover. The bubble has burst, the market is correcting, and there's a lot of disillusionment. Sound familiar at all?
The developer uses this fantastic analogy. He calls the whole learn to code boom a modern-day gold rush. And when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. The aspiring developers, they were the prospectors, all rushing out to find their fortune. But who got really rich in the gold rush? It was the people selling the shovels. In our case, it was the course creators and boot camps selling the dream. It's a pretty sharp analogy for a hype cycle that ended up leaving a ton of new developers in a completely oversaturated market.
Okay, so this is where our developer's vision takes a much darker turn. He wants us to imagine what the absolute peak of AI content creation could look like. And it's a future that he finds pretty disturbing. He gives it a name: soft content. Now, this isn't just content that's recommended for you, like your YouTube feed or TikTok. No, this is content that is being generated on the fly, just for you, literally adapting in real time to your biological and emotional state. Just try to imagine this for a second. A movie starring your favorite actor, maybe Emma Watson, directed by your favorite director, Christopher Nolan, with a score by Hans Zimmer. But it's a slow-burn zombie film, because the AI knows that's your secret perfect niche. This kind of soft content would be infinitely customizable and, frankly, biologically addictive. It's designed to, in his words, sequester and strangle our dopamine reserves. And since it's way cheaper and faster to produce than anything a human could ever make, it could completely take over our media landscape. It's a really chilling thought. But here's the pivot. Right after painting that really dystopian picture, our developer pulls us back to the present day and argues there is a fundamental, massive flaw in this whole forecast. And that flaw is rooted in what it actually means to truly know something. And this right here is the absolute core of his counter-argument. AIs, as powerful as they are trained on the world's registered knowledge. You know, all the words, all the text, all of the data we've ever put down on paper or online. But our human knowledge, it's so much more than that. It's built from our lived experiences, from our traumas, our joys, our intuition. It's all the knowledge that we can't and often don't ever write down. He puts it so well with this quote. He says, the vast majority of real human expertise, that gut feeling a master craftsman has, or the split-second intuition of a seasoned ER doctor, or the hard-won wisdom of a senior engineer who's seen it all, that stuff is almost never documented. We carry it inside us. Oh, I absolutely love this analogy. For a true expert, deep knowledge isn't like source code that you can easily read and explain line by line anymore. It's become a compiled binary. It's optimized, it's fast, it's almost subconscious. You just know. And think about it. How can you possibly train an AI on something that the human expert can't even fully articulate themselves?
And there's a very real trade-off to leaning too heavily on these tools. Our source points to a study that showed students who used an AI writing assistant had a potential 47% reduction in brain connectivity compared to those who didn't. The argument here is simple. When we start outsourcing the mental heavy lifting, we risk letting our own cognitive muscles get weak. And that risk is precisely why we need a totally new strategy for how we approach our work.
So, all of this brings us to the most important part of the whole discussion. What in the world do you do now? How do you position yourself not just to survive, but to actually thrive in this new landscape? Well, our source lays out a really clear, actionable playbook. This right here is the fundamental shift in mindset that you have to make. Your real value isn't just in the how, the physical act of typing out code. It's in the why. It's about deeply, truly understanding the business problem you're trying to fix and then creating actual, measurable value. So here it is, the 3-step focus. First, you have to become a business problem solver, not just a programmer. You need to constantly ask, how does this feature or this line of code impact the bottom line? Second, you have to master communication. Getting those brilliant ideas out of your head and into someone else's clearly and compellingly is an absolutely priceless skill. And third, and this is my favorite, you have to learn to connect the dots. Your unique life path, your weird hobbies, your non-coding interests, that is your superpower that no AI can replicate. This chart just visualizes the new value chain perfectly. Way down here at the bottom, you have writing the actual code, the mechanical part that AI is getting really, really good at. That becomes the lowest value task. The truly high-impact, high-value work is way up here, designing entire systems, communicating effectively, and solving real, tangible business problems. That's where you want to be spending your time and energy. And ultimately, the argument boils down to this. Code was never really the point, not even back when it felt like it was the most important part. It was always, always just a tool, a means to an end. This shift that's happening doesn't destroy the value of programmers. What it does is it elevates the ones who truly understand this fundamental difference.
So, in the end, we can reframe this entire debate. The fear, the question of, will I be replaced? That's paralyzing. It doesn't lead anywhere good. But what if we ask a completely different question? With these incredibly powerful new tools at our fingertips, what new, amazing, and valuable things will we, as human problem solvers, create? Now that is the real question for the future.